This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
This evening we have many fascinating things to present, and we have 2 sheets tonight. 2 sheets. Because not only are we learning this week, are we going to be learning Parsha Shemos, we're also beginning Sefer Shemos, the second book of the Chumash. So the first thing we want to discuss is what makes Sefer Shemos Sefer Shemos. What is the general theme of the Sefer that makes this a separate book of the Chumash? We know there are 5 books in the Torah: Bereshis, Shemos, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim. So there has to be something distinctive, something that makes these 10 parshios or so a separate Sefer. There's something thematic. Okay? Well, what makes Sefer Bereshis Sefer Bereshis? Is there one common theme about Sefer Bereshis? You know, at first glance it seems not, because the Ramban has coined Sefer Bereshis Sefer HaYetzirah, the book of creation. But if we think to ourselves, is that really the proper terminology for the Sefer Bereshis? Very nice. The first Parsha talks about the creation of the world. But after that, you have the flood, you have the life of Noach, you have Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. 95% of the Sefer doesn't talk about the creation of the world. So why is Sefer Bereshis termed Sefer HaYetzirah, the book of creation? So the Ramban tells us in his introduction to Sefer Shemos that really we could say that the entire Sefer is the book of creation. The whole book of Bereshis is the book of creation. How? Because, first of all, we have the creation of the world. Okay, that's obvious. But then, and we mentioned this during Shalosh Shudas a number of times, that the lifetime of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov was the pre-enactment, the paradigm, the symbolic representation of the history of Klal Yisrael. Their life created Klal Yisrael's history. How? The rule is, Maaseh Avos Siman Labanim. Whatever happened to our forefathers will happen to their descendants. So for instance, Abraham Avinu, he goes down to Mitzrayim, right? Why does he go down to Mitzrayim? Because of hunger. Remember? What happened? Sarah was taken away. Eventually he leaves with great wealth. That created the fact that Klal Yisrael would go down to Egypt because of hunger. All the women would be saved with the threat made against the men. But eventually we leave with great wealth. What's the great wealth? We left with money. We took all of their booty, right? Plus, but the real great wealth was the Torah. The real great wealth was the Torah. So that's just one illustration how the lifetime of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov created the history of Klal Yisrael. So we could say safely that Sefer Bereshis is Sefer HaYetzirah, the book of creation, because it talks about the creation of the world and the creation of the history of Klal Yisrael. Sefer Shemos, that the Ramban says is redemption. Sefer HaGeula, the book of redemption. Why? Because the Jewish people are redeemed. But even more than that, if Sefer Bereshis is the book where our history is being created, Sefer Shemos is where, right? Sefer Bereshis, the history was pre-enacted. Sefer Shemos, it's actually enacted. It's carried through. Meaning, Sefer Bereshis is Maaseh Avos. Sefer Shemos is the Siman Labanim. Is it coming to fruition? Okay. Says Ramban, what general theme is there in the whole Sefer Shemos? Geula. What does Geula mean? Redemption. We're redeemed. Fine. So if we were writing the Sefer, what would we do? We would talk about the Jews going down to Egypt and coming out. But so the Sefer should end with Parshas B'Shalach, once the Jews have left Egypt. What do we need to know? That they came to Midbar Sinai, and they got the Torah, and they built the Mishkan, and so forth. What does that have to do with Geula? What does it have to do with redemption? Says the Ramban, incredible thing. What does the word Geula mean? What does redemption mean? It means being restored to the state that the Jewish people were once at. Okay? Now, what state were we once at? The state of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So let's describe what level Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were at. Right? Remember, we learned about the tent of Sarah Imenu. What were the 3 distinctive features of the tent of Sarah Imenu? Anan Kashur al Ahala. The divine presence of Hashem rested on her tent. Okay? Number 2, she baked the challah Erev Shabbos, it stayed fresh through the whole week. Okay? And number 3, she lit the Shabbos candles, it stayed lit. Right? That represented the special Shechina that dwelled on the tent of Abraham, and we know that when Sarah passed away and Rivka came, it came back. So that was the state of the Avos. But when they went down to Mitzrayim, and they lost that special connection to Hashem, and even because whatever we didn't share that closeness to Hashem Shechina.
How do you know?
We don't see it. We don't find it. We don't find
Where
it.
do you find it that it did, all these things?
The Chumash tells.
Where?
Chazal tell us that the Medrash says that when Rivka came, it says that that Yitzchak was consoled after his mother, meaning he was happy now that he had this wife Rivka. Yeah. Rivka brought back whatever Sarah used to bring. So from there we learn out. Okay, but the Klal Yisrael lost that. When did it return? When they built the Mishkan. What happened when they built the Mishkan? The Anani HaKavod rested on the Mishkan. That means the Madrega that Sarah achieved in her tent, Klal Yisrael achieved on a national level. Right? The Lechem HaPanim stayed fresh from Erev Shabbos to Erev Shabbos. The menorah in the Beis HaMikdash was constantly lit. So that means whatever Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were able to achieve on their own, that was lost until when? Until the Jewish people built the Mishkan. Okay? So Sefer Shemos is a Sefer which sort of restores the level of Klal Yisrael had before they went down to Mitzrayim. Okay. I'll just bring out another point. The Medrash says that...
Wait, so how do you answer? Why do we need the second half?
Because the second half brought back... First of all, Klal Yisrael was not fully redeemed until they got the Torah and they built the Mishkan and the Shechina rested in the Ayal Ma'id. Okay? Now, another interesting facet, the Medrash tells us that when Moshe Rabbeinu set up the Mishkan, it says, Vayehi b'yoim kalois Moshe ha-Mishkan, and it was on the day Moshe finished the Mishkan. Okay? We read that in the first day of Chanukah. Vayehi. So the Medrash wants to know, why does it say the word Vayehi? The Medrash says Vayehi means something that once existed, was lost, and then came back. What was lost that came back with the Mishkan? Says the Medrash that before Adam HaRishon sinned, remember when Adam HaRishon, it says, Vayishma es kol Hashem mishalech bagan. He heard God's voice traveling through the garden. The Medrash says, we see from here, God, His Shechina was in this world. God was b'tachtoinim. As the Sefer HaTanya says, the goal of mankind is to bring down the Shechina to the tachtoinim. That was for a special guest. But don't tell anyone I said that. Okay?
It's okay, Rabbi.
But it was lost. When Adam HaRishon sinned, the Shechina left. And it was not restored until the Shechina came down on the Mishkan. So in other words, not only is Sefer Shemos restoring the level of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, it was restoring the level of the world before Adam HaRishon sinned. Before Adam sinned, Hashem, He was around, He was prevalent, He was matzoi, He was in this world. When He sinned, Hashem was chased out until the Shechina came back with the building of the Mishkan. So in other words, what is Sefer Shemos? A restoration of Bereshis. Bringing back Bereshis. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you something very interesting. We know the Gedolim of the last 500 years or so are called the Achronim. From about the year 1500 to, let's say, from 800 to 1500 was the Rishonim. Before that period, Gaonim, the Gaonim. Who are some of the Gaonim? Vilna Gaon is, okay.
He was the biggest guy.
But he was from the Achronim.
You have Vilna Gaon if he was not in the Gaon.
Okay.
Yeah.
What? You have Rav Sadia Gaon, Rav Shrira Gaon, Rav Achai Gaon, Rav Hai Gaon, and one of the Gaonim was the Bahag, the Baal Hilchos Gedolos. Okay? And he says something which seems very simple, but obviously is not simple.
There's only 5 Gaonim?
There are many Gaonim. Listen to what he says. He terms the 5 books of Moses, he gives them new names. Bereshis, Sefer Bereshis. That he sticks to the simple. Shemos, Sefer Hasheni, the second book. Chumash Hasheni. Okay, so you say, what's the big gainus calling it Chumash Hasheni? Everybody knows it's the second book. What does he mean, Chumash Hasheni? So you would expect, what does he call Vayikra?
Chumash means Chumash, 5.
A fifth. Yehuda Shlishi, no. Sefer Kohanim, the book of the priests. That makes sense. It's all about the laws of the Kohanim and the Beis HaMikdash and so forth. Bamidbar, Sefer HaPekudim, the book of counting numbers. Devarim, Mishnah Torah, the review of the whole Torah. So it sounds like he's trying to come up with a term to describe each one of the Svarim. Bereshis, fine, creation, the beginning. Vayikra, Sefer Kohanim. Bamidbar, Chumash HaPekudim. I skipped one. Devarim, Mishnah Torah. And he came up with this Goinistika term for Shemos. Chumash Hasheni, mamish, brilliant. Brilliant, right? Chumash Hasheni. What's he trying to tell me by saying it's Chumash Hasheni? What's he adding? What deep thing is he trying to tell me? So the Netziv writes in his Hakdama to Sefer Shemos. Listen. The fact that the Bahag calls Sefer Shemos Chumash Hasheni, obviously he's trying to teach me, you know what? That Sefer Shemos is Bereshis part 2. Okay? It's almost not a separate Sefer. It's Chelek Sheni of Sefer Bereshis, the second part of creation. How is Sefer Shemos the second part of creation? Very simple. If you look, when Hashem created the world, what did He create on the first day? Heaven and the earth. And it says at the end of the day 1, Vayi Erev, Vayi Voiker, Yom Rishon. At the end of the second day, He created the heavens, Vayi Erev, Vayi Voiker, Yom Sheni. On the third day, He gathered the water, Vayi Erev, Vayi Voiker, Yom Shlishi. Fourth day, He created the luminaries. The fifth day, and so forth. Yom Chamishi, Yom When it comes to the sixth day, it doesn't say Vayi Erev, Vayi Voiker, Yom Shishi. What does it say?
Yom HaShishi.
Yom HaShishi. The sixth day. Why? It doesn't say Yom HaRishon, Yom HaSheni, Yom HaShlishi. By the sixth day, it says Yom HaShishi. Says Rashi, it's not referring to the sixth day of creation. It's referring to the sixth day of Sivan. What happened on the sixth day of Sivan? Shavuos. What happened on Shavuos? Torah was given. Hashem's saying like this: I'm creating the world, very nice, but everything is dependent on Yom HaShishi, the day the Torah was given. Hashem says, He made a condition, He made a stipulation of the world. If the Jews accept the Torah, beautiful. V'yem lav, achzer es ha'olam l'tohu v'avayu, I will revert the world back to emptiness. In other words, the world, it's like you make a deal with someone, but on condition you meet certain requirements. Hashem created the world on condition what? That the Jews accept the Torah. So in other words, after Sefer Bereshis and God created the world and He created the history of the Jewish people, was the world created yet?
No.
Not fully. Until when?
Until the Jews accepted
Until the Torah was given. So that's the pshat, why the Bahag calls Chumash Shemos, Chumash Sheni. It's part 2 of creation. Because if the Jews do not accept the Torah, there is no creation. Creation would fall apart.
Rabbi.
Creation would disintegrate.
Rabbi.
So therefore, just to make clear, the Bahag terms the second book, the book of Shemos, Chumash Sheni, to teach you it's the second part of creation. Okay? And creation, in fact, we mentioned that we had a question. Esav sells the Bechira to Yaakov. Now, let's say I'm a Bechar. Could I sell my birthright to my younger brother?
Sell for beans.
No, you can't sell it. You know why? You know why you can't sell the Bechira? Because what are you buying? You're buying the double share of the inheritance. But you didn't get it yet. So you can't be makne future rights. It's called Ein Adam Makne Davar Shaloi Bala Olam. You can't be makne something that has not come to the world yet. So how could Yaakov buy from Esau the Bechira? So if you look in the K'tzais HaChoshen, he brings down from one of the Rishonim, the Rivat, that before the Torah was given, you're allowed to be makne something that's not in the world. You're allowed to transact. You can make a transaction on something that's not in the world. Why? Why should that be? What's the reason why? Let's say I say like this to you. In 10 days from now, you see my apple tree? There are no apples yet, but because it's not springtime. I want to sell to you the apples that grow on my tree in the spring. Can I sell it to you? Sure. You give me $100 and I give you all my apples. Is it a valid halachic transaction?
It's not a discount.
No. You cannot halachically transfer it because it's not here. You can't be makne something halachically that's not in the world.
What about sharecroppers? You could,
so you know what you could do? you could sell the tree for the fruit.
Or the land.
Or the land for the produce. In other words, you could sell the keren for the peiros. But just for the peiros alone, if the sale is not, if you're not transacting something that's here now, if you sell somebody the tree, so you could sell somebody the part of the tree that produces the fruit. In other words, a share in the tree that produces the fruit. But just to transact the fruit, it's ineffective. So how could Yaakov sell the Bechorah to Esav? Because before the Torah was given, you can transact something that's not in the world.
What changed?
Why?
Yeah, the Torah is there, so why can we do it?
One second.
Some of the literature that I've seen basically says that on the first day it created the light, but he didn't create the illuminaries till later in the week, and that the light was actually the Torah.
Okay, that's a subject in and of itself. What does it mean there was day and night if God hadn't created the sun and the moon yet? So, whether the primordial light is, right, whatever that means, that's a separate subject. But actually the Torah was created many 900 and so generations before the world was created. There was a Torah. Okay? Avraham Avinu was generation number 20. The Torah was given generation 26. That was the 1000th generation from when the Torah was around. The Torah was given in generation 1000. Davar tziva la'elef dar, we say in davening. Torah was commanded in generation 1000. I think 964 generations before the world was created, there was a Torah. Fine. So how was Yaakov able to transact to Esav the birthright if before the Torah was given? The answer is, before the Torah was given, everything was not in the world. Nothing was in the world. Because if the Torah is not accepted, the world would disintegrate. So let's say I want to buy a piece of land from you. That's also something that's not in the world because it's not here yet. Because if the Jews don't accept the Torah, the land won't exist. So in order to allow any transactions, we had to allow transactions on something that's not in the world. Otherwise, all transactions would have been invalid. Because until the Torah is given, the world is not here. So the world has no permanence. The world could, immediately disintegrate. Fine.
So what happened to Marat HaMachpelah, the transaction of that?
Because before the Torah was given, you could transact something that's not in the world yet.
Okay.
Okay? Before the Torah was given, you can... Okay. So, in other words, why is Sefer Shemos Chelek Sheni? Because it's creation, part 2. First, God created the world, but without the Torah of Sefer Shemos, the world would not exist anymore. Fine. Just quickly, because I don't want to lose that on sheet number 2 over here. Just to throw out and suggest another idea why Sefer Shemos is Chelek Chumash Sheni. Chumash Sheni. Okay? The second part of creation. How many exiles, how many galusim have we been in? Altogether?
3.
4.
Rome.
Okay?
No, it's the last one.
Bavel?
Rome.
Madai? Persia? Yavan, Greek? And Edom, Rome, that's what we're in today. These are the 4 galusim. And they're alluded to in the beginning of the Torah. It says, what does it say? V'ha'aretz hosa soihu. Soihu is Bavel. Vayu is Madai. Choshech, Yavan. That's why Chanukah, light, is by Choshech. Choshech, and Al Pnei Sahom is Edom. Because Tahom is like the deep abyss. Like this galus is almost endless. Okay? Fine. There are 4 galusim. We always talk about throughout all our literature, Midrashim, Gemaras, there are 4 galusim. What happened to the most obvious one? Which is the most obvious one? Mitzrayim. What happened to Mitzrayim? Well, the 430 years or the 210 years in Egypt, that was, nothing. That was pretty intense, a pretty intense galus. Says the Arizal that galus Mitzrayim was the father of all 4 galusim. It included in all of them. It was the pre-enactment, so to speak, the Maseyavoy Siman Labanim of all 4 galusim. That's why in the beginning of the Parsha, it says, look in the beginning of this week's Parsha, page 292. Ve'ela Shemos b'nei Yisrael ha-ba'im. Ba'im stands for Bavel, Edom, Yavan, Madai. Okay? The beginning of Galus Mitzrayim, we already have, the Arizal says, ha-ba'im, we have the hint, we have the allusion to all four Galusim, all four exiles. Very interestingly, so Sefer Shemos is also a book of creation. Created our various Galusim that we went through. But also, Yetzias Mitzrayim was a Masei Avos, Siman Labanim, for the Geula Ha'asida, the Geula Achroina. How do you know that? There's a pasuk in Micha. Everyone should know this pasuk. Look at number 8. The Navi Micha tells us, Ki meitzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu nifla'os. Look at number 8. There's a beautiful pasuk. Like the days that you went out of Egypt, I will show you miracles in the future. In other words, all of the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim were a portend. It was a symbolic pre-enactment of the Geula HaAchroina. So Sefer Shemos we could consider a book of creation in its own right. It's creating the final chapter of our history. As we're leaving Mitzrayim, we're leaving with great wealth, with great honor, receiving the highest spiritual levels. This represents the final destiny of the Jewish people. Creating the final destiny. Like the pasuk says, Ki meitzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu nifla'os. As we left Egypt, God will likewise show us miracles in the future. All the miracles of Mitzrayim are the pre-enactment of the miracles that will happen to us by the Geula HaAchroina. In fact, we know the Gemara tells us, the same way we were redeemed in Chodesh Nisan, B'Nisan Nigalu, U'V'Nisan Asiden Ligal. Right? And we'll end off this part with one more thing. The Shlach HaKadosh tells us that we know Tisha B'Av is called a Moyed. In Sefer Eicha it's called Kara Alay Moyed. It's called a Yom Tif. Why? Because eventually the Beis HaMikdash Mashiach will come. We have a tradition. Mashiach was born on Tisha B'Av, or will be born on Tisha B'Av. Eventually be a Yom Tif. The same night of the year the Jewish people left Egypt is the same night that Tisha B'Av falls out every single year. You want to know what night Tisha B'Av is? Whatever night the night of the Seder is, that's the night of Tisha B'Av. Every year.
Whoa.
At Bash, the first night of Pesach is the night of Tisha B'Av. Aleph, Taf. Aleph is the first night of Pesach. Taf is Tisha B'Av. Okay? Why? Because Yetzias Mitzrayim is the pre-enactment of the Geula HaAchroina. Whatever happened in Mitzrayim is going to bring about what happens in the Geula HaAchroina, the final redemption. And therefore, the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim is the same night as Tisha B'Av, which is eventually the time. It is a Yontif. We don't say Tachlan on
Tisha B'Av?
It hasn't. Now it has a great aspect of sadness, but there is an aspect of happiness also. On Tisha B'Av we don't say Tachlan because of the fact that it's a Moed. But the fact that the night of the Seder is also the night of Tisha B'Av, because the night of the Seder is a pre-enactment of the Geula HaAchroina, like the pasuk says, Ki meitzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu nifla'os. And in this sense, Sefer Shemos is part 2 of the book of creation. Because Sefer Bereshis is the creation of the world and the history until now. Sefer Shemos is the creation of the final chapter of our history.
When Mashiach comes, is Hashem going to split the sea?
Greater miracles. The Navi says that the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim will pale in comparison to the miracles of Geula HaAchroina. One of the things we know is that the Har HaZeisim will split in half. That's one of the things we know. Okay, now we move on a little bit.
All Jews are going to be able to see it like firsthand?
Hopefully.
Wow, that's something to look forward to.
Okay, now we move on to the second sheet. By the way, you know, they say, what's the first thing the Jews are going to do when Mashiach comes? Take out the camera, right? Okay.
They don't have to take it out, it's there.
Okay, let's move on a little bit. So in this week's Parsha, by the way, Paro tells the midwives, when you see a Jewish baby being born, kill it. Kill it. Now, what do the midwives say? The midwives say, we can't. The Jewish women, they're like animals. They don't need midwives. They just give birth. They know what to do. You know, they know the women, these Jewish Baba, they know what to do. The baby just comes out. What kind of response was that? Who cares? Paro tells the women, kill them. So what? So they came out. So kill them after they come out. You know, what was their response? Because by the time we get there, the baby's already born. So kill them.
No, we don't have any work. We're not there. They don't need us.
Well, when they come in, when the nurse comes, when the baby is taken to the nursery, so kill them then.
No, they don't need the nurse. They're saying we don't work. We're not working.
No. They're saying we get there too late. So the pshat is like this. Paro is the king of Egypt. He's not going to make a decree for women to murder babies. Obviously not. The nation's not going to go for it. A king has to run the country with some semblance of rule or order. Politically correct. So what is he doing? Abortion. He said, go, you abort the babies before they're born. Look inside, see what the gender is going to be, and abort the babies. Abort them. But they say we can't because by the time we get there, the baby's already born. And obviously a cold-blooded murder is not going to work in your kingdom. That was the back and forth between Yocheved and Miriam and Paro. What reward did Hashem give Yocheved and Miriam? Take a look in Pasuk Chaf Aleph, page 294. This is a beautiful, goinistic pshat. Chaf Aleph. Okay, we're going to do some brisker Torah now. Chaf Aleph. Vayehi. And it was Kiyaru Hamayaldois Esoleikim, when the midwives feared God, Vayas Lahem Batim, God made houses for them. What does that mean? He made houses. Says Rashi, 3 lines from the bottom of the second column. He gave them the following reward. He said, Bate Kehuna, Levia, Umalchus. The priests will come from you, the Levium will come from you. Right? We have Kohanim here. We have Levium. You're a Levi, right? And kings, not yet. Hopefully one day. What? Malchus based David. Now, so let's think for a second. Kohanim and Leviim, who'd they come from? Levi, from Yocheved Moshe. How about kings?
From Yehuda, Binyamin Yehuda.
Fine, we're Yocheved and Miriam, what kings? Miriam married Kalev. Kalev ben Yefuneh fathered the dynasty of Malchus Beis Yehuda. Okay? So listen to this is beautiful. Yeah? Why did Hashem reward Yocheved and Miriam that they would be the progenitors of Kehuna, Leviah, and Malchus? Why that reward? Why not give them, I don't know what, put them on the cover of Forbes 500, I don't know. Give them why that reward? Because what did Paro want them to do? Kill the males. What would have happened to the women? Who would they marry? Goyim. Is that so terrible? No, the kids will be Yidden. Well, were they going to destroy, did Paro want to destroy Klal Yisrael? No. He only wanted to destroy those aspects of Judaism that are passed down through the father. What are they? Kehuna, Leviah, Malchus. Kohanim goes after the father. Leviim, only the father. Malchus, your father has to be from Malchus Beis David. So what Paro wanted to eradicate was the aspects of lineage that go after the father. As a reward for them not doing that, they were rewarded that Kohanim, Leviim, and kings came from them. Because they restored the patrilineal descent of the Jewish people.
Why did he want to do that for?
He wanted to marry the women.
No.
Why did he want to be?
Why did he only want to destroy the claim lady?
Yeah.
I have one also explanation.
Yeah.
The Brit Milah, no? The Egyptian also used to do the same thing. So that's the only mitzvah that Jews did back then. Only the Brit Milah.
So that explains why what?
It's stopping the only mitzvah that they used to do. And Brit Milah, no?
So they stopped, and they were rewarded that Kohanim, Leviim, and Malchus?
I just...
they wanted to stop the mitzvah for the men. Interesting. Okay, another interesting piece. Okay, this is also a lesson in social work. You ready for this one? Here, Moshe Rabbeinu grows up, turn to page 298. Okay, Shlishi. Vayihi bayamim ha'im. It was in those days. Vayigdal Moshe grew up. Vayetze Yalechav, he goes out to his brothers. Vayar b'sivlosam, he sees their burden. Vayar ish mitzri, make ish ivri meyachav, he sees an Egyptian whacking his friend, smiting his friend. Vayifen ko v'cho, he turns this way, he turns that way. Vayar ki einish, he sees no one's looking. Vayaches ha-Mitzri, he smacks the Mitzri. Moshe hits the Mitzri. Vayitmineo b'chol, he kills him, he buries him in the sand. By the way, I once heard an explanation. What does it mean he turned this way and that way? Moshe Rabbeinu was a little, so to speak, trying to figure himself out. Here Moshe Rabbeinu leaves his palace for the first time. He knew his father was Amram, his mother was Yocheved. They didn't raise him. He was raised in the house of Paro. Moshe Rabbeinu sees an Egyptian hitting a Jew. Moshe Rabbeinu says, what am I? Who am I? Am I a Yid or am I a Mitzri? Vayifen Kai, he turns one way, he sees himself as a Yid. Vayifen Cho, he turns the other way, he sees himself as an Egyptian. Vayar Ki Einish, he says, that's no way to be a man. That's no way to be a man. To be wishy-washy, to be jumping on both sides. And he said, I have to take a stance. Vayaches ha-Mitzri, he smites the Mitzri. That he goes out to his brothers, he had to determine, now that he's leaving his palace, what am I? Vayifen Ko v'cho, he turns both ways. Vayar Ki Einish. If you're a man, you can't straddle both sides of the fence. You have to determine, who are you? Vayaches ha-Mitzri. In any event, but that's not what Rashi says. That's what we call a homiletic.
So who was he?
Well, he was a Yid. But look what Rashi says. What does it mean he saw nobody was there? What does it mean Vayar Ki Einish? What does it mean Vayar Ki Einish? He saw there was no man. Says Rashi, take a look at Rashi. She'ein ish asid lotzeis mimenu sheyiskayer. He saw there would be no worthy descendant to come out of this Egyptian. No one would ever convert from this Egyptian guy. Let me ask you a question. Yeah, he looked in Ruach HaKodesh and he saw there was nobody worthy coming out of this guy, so he killed him. Let me ask you a question. Let's say in the time when there was a Jewish court system and they warned the guy, don't desecrate Shabbos, and the guy said, I'm doing it anyway, what would happen to him? They kill him. They stone him. Yeah. What if, one of the tzaddikim sees that he's going to have a grandchild who's going to be a big tzaddik? What do they do to him? They stone him. Doesn't matter what's going to come out of this guy. That's not our business. When somebody is worthy of the death penalty, that's not our prerogative to start playing God. Who is worthy to come out?
When nothing's coming out of him, you stone him harder.
No. So what does it mean? What does it mean that why was Moshe Rabbeinu, if Moshe Rabbeinu felt that this individual is worthy of death, what's he looking to see whether somebody worthy was going to come out of him or not? If you're chayiv misa, you're chayiv misa. Now, why was this Mitzri chayiv misa? Why was he liable to the death penalty? The Rambam says if a guy hits a Yid, even if he doesn't wound him, he's liable to the death penalty. Okay? But we don't kill him. What does that mean, we don't kill him? That means he's liable to the death penalty through the hands of heaven. But the courts down here will not kill him. He's chayiv misa bidei shamayim. Okay? How is Moshe Rabbeinu killing this Mitzri? How did he kill him? He took out a pistol and he shot him?
Yeah. He said Hashem's name.
He said God's name, the ineffable name, because we see later when he meets up with Dasan Va'aviram, they said, Moshe, get out of here. Halehargeni ata oimerik? You're going to kill me with words like you killed that Mitzri? So how is Moshe killing this guy? With God's name. What kind of Misa is that? That's Misa bidei shamayim. That's not a Bezdin. That's Hashem killing him. When Hashem takes away somebody's life, Hashem looks to see who is going to come out of this person. And if this person is going to have a worthy descendant, Hashem will refrain. So therefore, since Moshe Rabbeinu was not killing him as a judicial judge, but rather as Misa bidei shamayim, and when it comes to Misa bidei shamayim, we have to look to see what is the outcome. Moshe Rabbeinu has to see, is anybody going to come out of this guy? Because he's not killing him as a dayan, it's Misa bidei shamayim. It's Misa bidei shamayim. Okay? Says Rabbi Shua Leib Diskin, right? Rabbi Shua Leib Diskin says, if you remember when Klal Yisrael, Rabbi Shua Leib, he says when the Klal Yisrael was traveling through the lands of Ammon, Moab, Midian, so what did we do to the Midianim? They were liable to the death penalty because of all the harm they inflicted upon us. They caused us to serve idols. They caused us to commit lewd acts, and they were liable to the death penalty. What about Moab? Gemara says we didn't kill Moab. Why? Because out of Moab would come Rus and Naamah. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares who's coming out of them? If it's a war of a mitzvah, you got to do what you got to do. You got to wipe them out. The answer is because the Torah says this is Nikmas Hashem. This is God's vengeance. This is not a regular warfare. This is the warfare of God. When God exacts vengeance, it has to be calculated.
Long term.
It has to be calculated. And therefore, because Rus and Nama were going to come out of them, they were spared. They were spared. So again, when the courts down here, when human beings have to make a decision and punish someone, they don't take into account the future, that they don't play God. But when we're using some type of supernatural system, when Moshe Rabbeinu is using the Shem HaMeforash, he has to figure out exactly what are the repercussions. Is anyone going to come out of this individual? No? Then he could use it. Otherwise.
In the case of Rusanama, who was it that was like the Moshe Rabbeinu?
The Klal Yisrael.
They were Nevi'im?
No, but Hashem caused them to cast upon their enemy a unnatural fear.
No, but in order to see down the line, you have to have a
So
prophecy.
Hashem, we don't know who exactly
Moshe
had the
was
problem.
Navi.
Hashem told Moshe.
But no, but by Rusanami, Moshe was there.
No, they didn't kill Moab because of the future.
The next generation.
Right? And many, right. Okay. Here, listen to this. Moshe Rabbeinu, let's look at the next pasuk. Pasuk Yud Gimel, okay? Vayetze vayom hasheni, he goes out on day 2. V'hinei shnei anoshim ivrim nitzim. He sees 2 Jews fighting. By the way, who are these men? Says Rashi, who are they? Dasan and Aviram, right? Whenever we say anoshim in a bad context, it's the 2. You always have the 2 guys. You know, they always whenever something bad is happening, you always have the Dasan and the Aviram. You know, they rear up at all occasions. Vayomer l'Rasha, Moshe says to the Rasha, Lama sakriyecha, why are you hitting your friend? Who was the Rasha? Dasan. And he says to Dasan, what are you doing hitting your friend? Okay. Now let's zoom a few decades later.
Troublemakers.
Dasan and Aviram, do they like Moshe Rabbeinu? No. Right? In fact, they were
I thought he killed him.
They were the main proponents of Korach. Korach, right?
Didn't he kill him?
No.
He hit him in his hand.
That was the Mitzri. This is episode 2.
Oh.
Let me ask you a question. Why does Moshe?
Yeah.
He rebukes Dasan. He rebukes Dasan. Yeah. So I understand why Dasan hates Moshe, but Aviram should love Moshe. Here you have 2 guys getting into a fight, right? They're fighting. Dasan picks up his hand. He's about to slap the guy next to you, right? Don't hit the Veer. He's my friend, right? But imagine he's about to attack, and I say, "See, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, I understand you're not going to like me anymore, but the Veer, he's going to love me. I'm saving his life. I'm saving his life. But yet we find later on in history, not only does Dasan hate Moshe Rabbeinu, Aviram, he hates him just as much. Why is that? Says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Brilliant insight. Dasan and Aviram are brothers. If you look in Parshas Pinchas, it says Eliav had Dasan, Aviram, Nemuel, and so forth. When you meddle into family politics and you try to help out one side, eventually they'll make up and they'll both hate you. Because family, even if they're on bad terms now, the nature is, they'll go to the Hanukkah party together and they'll schmooze, they'll sit back, they'll drink, they'll eat, and they'll forget about it. But then one of them's going to say, that guy, that rabbi, remember when he rebuked me? And what's his business? Who does he think he is? And the other brother's going to agree, even though he was trying to help out. That's the way it is. Be careful when you meddle into a family. Because you think you're helping one side, eventually they'll make up, and they'll both be against you. Yeah. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. If you look, it's in number 6. I'm sorry, we're not reading it inside. But, okay.
That's like domestic violence.
What?
It's like domestic violence. Police don't want to get involved if they can. Because it's always a bad outcome, no matter what.
Oh, that was a great analogy.
I'm not a stupid look.
No, it was very...
Okay, we're going to end with the following.
You don't look stupid either.
Okay, we're going to end with the following. Ready for this, Oren?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Ken's ready.
Okay. Moshe Rabbeinu comes to the burning bush, right? He comes to the burning bush. What does God say? He says, first he says, Al tikrav halom. Don't approach here. What do you think you're doing standing by my burning bush? Move back. Step back. Al tikrav. What's the word? Halom, right? You said? Al tikrav halom. Then he says, take off your shoes. Remember, Parshas Vayetze, we learned taking off your shoes, that the body is like the shoe of the neshama, right? Because the neshama is the bottom portion of the neshama in our body is the bottom portion of the neshama. The body to the neshama is like the shoe to the body. Fine. So God says, move away. Don't approach here. Take off your shoes. You're standing on holy ground. Says the Gemara in Zvachim, we learn from here, at this point, Moshe Rabbeinu was asking to be the king of Klal Yisrael. He wanted Malchus to come from him. Probably because he already knew that his mother was promised Malchus. We learned earlier, the reward of Yocheved and Miriam was Kahuna, Leviah. Moshe Rabbeinu figured, I have the Kahuna and the Leviah. Moshe lost the Kahuna, by the way. I want Malchus also. Where do we see he wanted Malchus? Because Hashem says, Al tikrav halom. And whenever we refer to the majesty of the king in Tanakh, it's called halom. We find in Sefer Shmuel, where the king said, who am I that you have brought me ad halom, until here. Halom refers to a special level. And we find when Boaz was talking to Rus, he uses the word halom to allude that Rus, kings are going to come from you. Hashem says to Moshe, Al tikrav halom. Don't come here. Meaning, you're not going to be a king. You're not going to be a king. But that's it. That's all we see. That Moshe was asking to be a king from the word halom. Is there anything else in this incident that gives us sort of a remez to this idea that Moshe Rabbeinu was asking to be the king? So listen to Rabbi Shua Leib Diskin. Go'inus. Listen to what he says. Gemara tells us in Chulin, until what age are you called a yeled, a child? When do you move out of being a yeled?
13?
So listen to what the Gemara says. Gemara doesn't give an age, it gives a siman. So long as you could stand on one leg and take off your shoe and put on your shoe, you're a yeled. You ever see kids, they're very flexible, they're balanced. Yeah, but try taking off your shoe standing on one leg,
Even if you're standing on one leg, you have to take off the shoe that you're standing on. That's hard.
No, try standing on one leg, taking off the shoe. It's a very difficult task. Says the Gemara, you could do that, you're a yeled. After that, you can't. Says the Gemara in Chulin, Rabbi Chanina was able to take off his shoe standing on one foot at age 80. Says Rabbi Chanina, you know why I was able to do that? It was the hot water and the wine and the oil that my mother moisturized me when I was a child that gives me the kayak, the strength to be able to do this at age 80. So he's crediting his mother's care to his extraordinary strength at age 80. What do we see from here, says Rabbi Shua Leib Diskin? That ordinarily an 80-year-old person cannot take off his shoes standing up. It was only Rabbi Chanina, because his mother gave him special, aloe lotion, whatever he smeared. How old was Moshe Rabbeinu at this point? 80 years old. He was 80. So if Moshe needed to take off his shoe, what was he going to have to do? Sit down. But there's a problem. Because what is by the sneh? The Shechina. In the place of the Shechina, you're not allowed to sit. Ein yeshiva ba'azara. You're not allowed to sit in the Beis HaMikdash. By the way, you're not allowed to sit within 4 amos of someone davening Shmona Esrei. For the same reason, the Taz writes in Siman Kuf Beis, in Shulchan Aruch, you can look it up. I put it on the sheet just very briefly, number 5, Sivkat and Gimel. The reason the Taz gives why you're not allowed to sit within 4 amos of someone davening Shmona Esrei is because the territory becomes like the Beis HaMikdash. It becomes holy territory. So you can't sit. There's only one person who's allowed to sit. A king who descends from David HaMelech. Ein yeshiva ba'azara el malchus beis David bilvad. So Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem tells him, take off your shoe. Moshe Rabbeinu says, fine. Moshe Rabbeinu starts sitting down. Sitting down? Is he a king? Obviously he wants to be the king. Because only a king has license to sit in the place of the Azara. So what does Hashem say? Al tikrav halom. Don't sit here. Shal nalech me'arecha. Move away and take off your shoes. I'm not giving you malchus. So besides the word, that was Hashem's decision not to give Moshe malchus. But besides the word halom, the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to take off his shoes, obviously he couldn't do it standing, he had to do it sitting, because he was 80 years old. That means that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to sit, but you can't sit in a holy place. Must be Moshe Rabbeinu was requesting Malchus. And that's how another remez to the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was requesting Malchus, and Hashem tells him, Al Tikrav Halom, do not approach here. Okay, so some things to think about on Sefer Shemos in general and Parsha Shemos.
Very nice.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.